Hello, hi. I'm Allison Arngrim, and this is the Allison Arngrim Show. Well, I am Allison Arngrim, and some of you may remember me as evil Nellie Olson. But tonight I'm Allison Arngrim, and this is the Allison Arngrim Show. Here on the Allison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make you feel good. The movies and the television shows that made us feel good and the people who made them. And people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And again, I have someone who is all of these things at the same time. Okay, this is someone who is not only pretty much in every single television show or movie I've ever really, really liked, and is saving the world at the same time. Yes, you all know who he is. Yes, seven-time Emmy nominee, young Sheldon, Better Call Saul, Saint Elsewhere, and yes, he's in absolutely everything. Mighty Wind, and he's getting the reboot of the new reboot of the series Queer as Folk. He is everywhere, and he's going to save us from ourselves, probably environmentally, because he's the only one who's really doing enough. The wonderful, fabulous Ed Begley Jr.
Allison, good to see you. How are you?
I am so good. How are you?
Just great. Having a good day here in Studio City. What part of the world are you in?
I'm up in the hills, up in Tahunga, almost in the Angeles National Forest.
I love it up Tonga Canyon. It's beautiful, beautiful up there.
Gorgeous. And we're not flooding. I mean, the water's going down the street, but are you flooding much out there in Studio City? It's been quite wet, to put it mildly.
Yeah, there's some intersections that don't have the proper drainage. We're working on that. I've been working for years with tree people, and now my daughter Amanda Begley works with them, these wonderful watershed management programs where they try to capture that water rather than putting that concrete freeway out to the ocean called the flood channel, rather than put it in there to have it percolate down into the groundwater or to capture it in tanks as I do in my property and use it for irrigation. We want to keep that water here and not let it just go out now polluted, pipe it, pollute it, and put it in the Los Angeles, like Santa Monica Bay area. We don't want to do that. We can save it.
Oh, yeah, because I can see the stuff going down my street. I can see that it's dirty from here, and it's also everyone's trash cans have fallen over now in it, and it's going straight out into the ocean. It's going into the drainage thing. Yeah, so
it's
that would be a
possible
really
to keep it here on site, have it percolate down the water table, or to save it in a big tank, which I do, and then that's great. Then I've got 10,000 gallons of water ready to irrigate my vegetable garden in the property, going forward now from this wonderful rain we've had.
See, this makes so much sense, and we're constantly complaining we don't have enough water. I mean, how do we get people to do this? I said you're working on. Are they going to do it?
People are thinking now about the danger of it, because as much as it's a benevolent thing here, because we're handling it right on my property and elsewhere, and the same thing out there in the Balboa Park area with the big spreading basins, there are people now in Montecito who don't think it's so great because with those flash floods and boulders the size of buses coming down the hill, it's been bad, a lot of the flooding there, but we manage it better, we can do it, but the Army Corps of Engineers for years was part of the problem. Now they're part of the solution. They get it. They love spreading basins. And there's, like the Atwater Village area, there's no concrete at the bottom, of it, and it can percolate down the groundwater where we need it. And that's what we have to start thinking of. And we've been very successful at doing that. We've had intersections here in the San Fernando Valley, that would be so flooded, a car would get stuck in it. And then Andy Lipkus from Tree People said, give me that same amount of money you're going to spend on doing all sorts of concrete, drainage programs to put it out to the ocean again. Let me keep it on site and see if that, if we can use that water for irrigation. He did just that, and it costs the same amount as doing it the wrong way. Because that's the thinking for years. Pave it, pipe it, pollute it. And
right.
We don't need to do it that way.
And of course, there you see, and it costs the same amount of money to do it the right way, but it did the wrong way, which usually is how these things work out. Now, you've been talking about this stuff for years, for decades, about recycling, about not wasting things, about not wasting gasoline and using more electric cars and bicycles and everything. When did this first start? When did you first realize that something needed to be done and you were the person to do it?
Well, not only do I live in the San Fernando Valley now, I came home from Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in 1949 to a little home in Van Nuys. My dad was an actor, of course, Ed Begley Sr., a wonderful actor. And so I grew up in the Valley, and you know what came with that back in my day. You're a much younger person than me, Allison, but I grew up with that horrible smog in LA. And it was still around a bit when you were a young lady working here on Little House, of course. but it was really bad in the 50s and 60s. So when somebody in 1970, we're going to have something called Earth Day. Gaylord Nelson and others said we should have an Earth Day. Well, what are we going to do, for Earth Day? Well, we're going to clean up the air. We're going to clean up the water. I said, sign me up. I've been to Santa Monica Bay. I know how polluted the water is there after it rains. I've heard about the Cuyahoga River catching fire. I saw the oil spill in Santa Barbara. That's the water, the air, every day. I didn't need to look to Santa Barbara, Cuyahoga River every day in the valley, but maybe 100 days a year. You couldn't see the Santa Monica Mountains or the Verdugo Hills or the Simi Hills. And it wasn't just visual blight. Oh, I want to see the mountains. They're pretty. It hurt your lungs. It seared your lungs. And so I wanted to get involved. It was the smog that got me involved. And then doing things right and eventually saving money was the reason I stayed with it.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, yeah, I was a little girl in the 60s. I was born in 62, and we lived in LA from like 1966 on. And so I was going to school in 67 and 68 and 69, and we had smog days. We had smog days where they shut everything down. You just go to the auditorium because nobody could go outside. I have
Yep,
sensitive eyes and nasal passages. My eyes would burn. I would
mine
cry.
too.
We had
Yep.
smog. It was that bad. And like people now will say it's smoggy. And I said, do you know that when I was a child, we had smog days? It was so bad. And they're horrified. And then they went, oh, well, maybe we should do something about the gasoline and change the formulation. And they had to force the companies, just push them to say, well, take out the lead, take out this, and change all these things. And then, oh, look, the sky's not completely orange and my eyes don't burn and we don't have smog days at school. So things actually can be improved.
We have to remind people about those kinds of stories where there's a happy ending. That is to say, even though we have 4 times the amount of cars since 1970, millions more people, we have a fraction of the smog. That's a good thing. Now we
It's
got to
not like
keep
less, it's not less people are driving since I was 9.
right.
More
A lot more
people are
people
driving,
driving, a lot more cars, a lot more
millions
people.
more. And the air, even when it's not perfect, but it is hundreds of times better than it was when I was a child. I mean,
Now
I can contest with this.
we got to build on that success and help the people that live near the ports of Long Beach, the ports of Los Angeles there, and San Pedro and Wilmington. We got to help those people near the shipping centers. We got to help the people near the fulfillment centers where all these diesel trucks are idling and bringing goods back and forth for not just California, but for the whole country. And so we got to help those people. We've gotten our air cleaner. I have in Studio City, and I'm happy for that. And most of the valley is much, much, much cleaner than it was, but we got to help the people in those other areas, the ports of LA and Long Beach and the shipping and fulfillment centers.
Incredible. Now, as you just mentioned, your dad, you grew up in a showbiz family, and I grew up in a showbiz. Everyone was an actor in my family, and I was reading about you and your dad, and that you really liked growing up in a showbiz family, inspired you. And I think for me, it was similar. My parents met in the theater. My parents ran the Totem Theater in Canada, and they were both actors. My mother was a voiceover artist. And until I was 7, I literally thought everyone was on television, that they just took turns. I had no concept. And so the weirdness of growing up in a show business family where you kind of go, this is a normal thing to do. This is sort of what happened to you.
It was. I wanted to be an actor like my dad. I saw what he did. I went, well, that looks easy. Get me serious. I want to be on Gunsmoke. I want to be on Wagon Train. Get me Perry Mason. I want to be a regular, by the way. I had no idea the amount of work that people like you, professional actors at the time, put into it. I was the son of an actor, and I thought I was charming. I don't know what I thought I was. I thought I could just do that. Give me a script. I'll learn the lines and I'll do it. No
How hard could
training.
it be?
Yeah. And so I never got any work, of course. You got work because you trained and you worked on it. I did none of that. Wake me when I'm famous with my attitude. And finally, I took some training. I took some classes, and big surprise, I got work after that. And then I continued to train and continued to work, and finally didn't get fired. I was lucky enough to keep learning and worked, and finally got better at it.
Well, I started working very small child, with commercials and things. And the funny thing is, people ask me if I'm making a comeback, and I always tell them, no, Little House was actually the comeback role because I had worked really little. And when I was 11, I'd just done a movie. When I was 10, I wasn't working very much. And my father, being a manager and being very realistic about things, sat me down and said, a lot of child actors kind of stop working when they hit like 11 and 12, and sometimes they don't work again or don't work till adulthood. So you might not work again till after you're 18, or you might never work again at all. So it had explained to me that my career might be over at 11. And so then I got Little House at 12. So technically that was my comeback. I'd had a midlife crisis at 11 and then got working again. But yeah, it's very strange when you grow up in it. You kind of think, well, doesn't everyone do this? How hard could it be? But yes, of course, we discover there's quite a lot of work involved. But you do everything. I mean, it's television, film, stage, drama, comedy. You do everything, and you're always just utterly convincing. You are that guy in everything you do. I think that's why it works. Um, how do you think it is that you reach that where you are just able to absolutely just be that guy, no matter which thing it is you're doing, which genre of entertainment?
You're very sweet to say all that. And I'll just say I got lucky. I worked on shows like Room 222 early on, and I kind of learned, while doing that show, how to finally be relaxed around the camera. And not just the great cast, Lloyd Haynes and Michael Constantine and Denise Nichols and all those wonderful people that were in it. They had a guest cast of Cindy Williams and Richard Dreyfuss and Bruno Kirby and all these people. And David Jolliffe was a regular in Heshimu, and Karen Ballantyne was recurring, and then finally, I think, a regular on the show. And writers, James L. Brooks was a writer on the show, I believe. So they had great people doing it, and I, got one episode and somehow got another and another. I did 6 or 7, and kind of learned to act in front of a camera on that show. I did plays at Valley College. I went to Valley College and studied San Fernando Valley there. Met some people that, I had a comedy partner by the name of Michael Richards, who went on to do Kramer on Seinfeld. And, I had a lot of people who were, fine actors there that I met at college doing plays. And I just started to work, and fortunately didn't get fired or make anybody mad, to the point where I learned enough to work with some very good people and get some very good material.
And that is, as crazy as it sounds, I can totally identify. Kind of having a show business career kind of is sort of a series of not getting fired.
Yes.
If I can just not screw this one up, I can probably make it to the next one. Amazing. You're nominated for an Emmy total of 7 times. Is it total 7 nominations?
Yeah, 6 times for St. Elsewhere, one time recently for this Control Alt Delete wonderful show that I did with these wonderful ladies uh, about a woman's health clinic. And so I've had 7 nominations, never won, but very glad and proud to be nominated.
Incredible. Well, now St. Elsewhere, that's a wonderful thing to the experience. I've always tried to explain it, but it's almost impossible to explain what it's like to be on a long running series where you're with the same people, you're playing the same character, and you're kind of in that world for a really long time. It's very different from everything else. What was St. Elsewhere like for you?
It was what I always wanted from the earliest age. I wanted to be on a series. I wanted to do movies too, and I wound up doing some movies and still do them. But I, more than anything, wanted to be on a television series. And then I got that with St. Elsewhere, and my life has been very good ever since. Bruce Paltrow changed my life. He was a producer, and I went up for the part of Dr. Peter White, part played by Terrence Knox. I didn't get the part I wanted, which was a regular. They threw me a bone and gave me a part that had 1 or 2 lines, called Dr. Victor Ehrlich. And then that part somehow blossomed into something very good and very special. The writers liked writing for the character because he was this tall, kind of goofy guy, and Bill Daniels is a shorter person than I. And, he played this kind of nasty chief of surgery. And so I got a lot of scenes written with him, and they liked that and continued to write for it. So it was just dumb luck. I won the lottery, Allison, is basically what happened, and after you do a show like that, that ran only 6 years. Little House ran for like 10 years or 9.
It ran a total of 9, and I was on for 7. And yeah,
Amazing.
it was absolutely like winning the lottery. And I was so pleased to see I got to play this objectionable villain person, which was always just so much fun. But yes, it just changes your life. It's just like, well, now I'm over here doing this. It's absolutely incredible. And I've been enjoying you on Young Sheldon, and That's fascinating because, like with Little House, we had so many very, very young people carrying the leads of the show. What is it like working with someone who's that young, who's the lead of the show?
He's wonderful. We've both been around young performers who, you know, have been damaged by the industry and they get things wrong in their head. That happens to people. I've seen it happen to young people and older people too, certainly. But he is not that person. He has got his head on straight. He's such a wonderful young man. His mother's great. She's there all the time. He's just a wonderful actor. He speaks 5 languages. He's fluent in
Really?
Russian. And oh, yeah, he's an
So
amazing
he
brainiac.
practically is young Sheldon. He's that
He
smart.
is. He's
Because
that smart.
he seems that, and I've gotten the impression just from any media I've seen about him that yes, he and his family are on the correct path, and that there's no fooling around here, and he's going to be okay. But that's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear that.
Yeah, really funny and very nice to me. He has only one flaw. He somehow thinks I'm very funny. That's his only incidence of poor taste. He just somehow laughs at all my jokes. So I've got a captive audience with him there on the set, I suppose. And we have a great time together. He has a lot of scenes with Wallace Shawn too, which I always love when I
Mhm.
get to work with Wally. And we just have a great time doing it. Steve Milaro, the executive producer, is such a great producer, a great writer. The writer's room is wonderful on that show because it's not only a funny show, but it's got so much heart. It's really got a lot of heart and has a lot of love and reverence for the people of Texas, which is a good thing at this point in time. I think that, we get to understand and love each other as best we can. And that's one of the things I like best about the show.
Oh, wonderful! You seem generally, and this is the impression I've gotten of you before in interviews, that very pleased and very grateful for everything that you've done in the industry and in your career. Um, I don't. Everyone, not everyone has that attitude. I certainly, I'm just like thrilled and amazed and grateful for that anybody cares in the slightest what I'm doing. So yes, I totally get that. But how have you maintained it? How have you maintained this sort of joy of performing that you seem to have?
I didn't have it early on, Allison. I kind of, thought, oh boy, I got cheated on this deal, and what is that? I should have gotten this, and I very quickly, early on, thank God, somewhere around 8:30 something, working on St. Elsewhere, I said, wait a minute, I won the lottery, just being born Ed Begley's son, wanting to go in that field. I'm convinced if my dad had been a plumber, I'd be fitting pipe now. I just wanted to do what he did. So he was an actor. I wanted to do that. So number one, I go in an interview, they're going to remember my name, whether it's Ed Begley or Rob Reiner or Liza Minnelli. You pick the person that wants to go in the business. You might have some talent, but you got to get them to remember your name. And also, it's great they have something to talk about. I work with your dad, Carl, on the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's terrific. And I work with Ed Begley on Patterns, this wonderful Rod Serling thing back in live TV, a craft theater thing. So starting the top of page 3, Eddie, and let's see how you do. Good luck now. They're rooting for you right away because you're Ed's son. That's what I found. I didn't get that right away, how much an advantage it was being his son. I went, I want to do it on my own and I don't want any help and what have you. And he didn't overtly help me. He never picked up the phone and got me a job. Like he could do that, number one, or I would have appreciated if he had done it. So I had to earn it a certain amount, but I was definitely born on second or third base by being his son. That's a
And I
great
think it's
advantage.
incredible to like know that, and then and it's not your fault. You're vaguely,
Right.
but to realize and go, okay, this is I want to do this, and I'm willing to do the work, and I'm willing to train, I'm do the thing. But hey, I also got this great, huge, massive advantage here, so I'm going to grab it with both hands and run with it.
My other good fortune was meeting early on in my career in my life on different interviews, different offices, waiting to read for different shows, the actor Bruno Kirby, and he was very serious about his work, and so I got more serious about my work knowing Bruno, and he went on to do Donnie Brasco and The Godfather Part Two, and you know, he did a ton of movies, and he was great in all of them. And so I got more serious about my work being around people like Bruno and Adam Arkin. We all studied with Peggy Fury, this wonderful teacher down on La Brea there. She had the loft studio with her husband, Bill Traylor, and we studied there. And, Sean Penn studied there, and Annette O'Toole, and Bruno, as I said, and me, and Angelica Houston. Lots of wonderful people studied with her. And then I, fortunately got to get better at the work when these better opportunities arose, like St. Elsewhere And then, like She Devil and Going South, working with Jack Nicholson, She Devil working with Meryl Streep, doing Best in Show and Mighty Wind and all those wonderful movies with Christopher Guest. I fortunately got to train on the job doing these shows. I was prepared to do the kind of work you get to do with someone like Chris Guest and his team of improv actors.
Now, I am crazy for the Chris Guest movies, as many
Me
people are.
too.
And oh my God, I love Mighty Wind. And Floyd Van Buskirk, friend of mine, was in Mighty Wind, and just love, love, love that movie. And I was actually watching a clip of that this morning and laughing out loud. And then I saw there was an interview you did where that was not scripted. All of the such a dimension, it's a mitzvah, the verklempt that I was dying that so much of it, those movies, of course, are not scripted. There's a framework and then there's massive improv. That's the thing. And you described it as like being a musician and just going with a chord chart. We're not going to do it. We're just going to have a chord chart. We're going to do it like the
That's
fake
right.
book,
No individual
like a
notes, just
jazz.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of a jazz experience, which is great when you're working with people like Fred Willard and Parker Posey and Catherine O'Hara, these great, actors and incredible, people, just an incredible cast. Michael Hitchcock, Chris, a great improv actor. All of them is just extraordinary. Eugene Levy, Jim Pittick, Michael McKean. It's such a joy to work with these people. I just feel blessed every time I get that call, and what good work he's done, with that and with Spinal Tap. Now I think there's going to be a Spinal Tap reunion. I've
Oh,
heard
good.
tell of that. I die in a bizarre gardening accident, so I can't come back, but I can't wait to see what Harry Shearer and the gang do with this one. I'm a big fan of Harry Shearer, of course. So
So,
all
but
of
yeah,
them
I go
together.
all the way back to Spinal Tap. I saw Spinal Tap in the theater, and I remember I saw it with some friends who were big heavy metal fans, and they were sort of pouting and it's not like that. And of course, I was screaming my head off with laughter through the whole thing. That scene that you did you talk about that was you. They said, here, do this, and you just started riffing and doing this. That was not scripted. That was all you. I just was very impressed. It was completely hilarious.
That's the great ease of it in a way, because you don't have to learn any lines. And Chris and Eugene, and now Chris and Jim Pittick do all the heavy lifting. They write the 25-page treatment, for like Best in Show. Jerry and Cookie Fleck, which is Eugene and Catherine. Jerry and Cookie Fleck try to check in the hotel, but their credit card doesn't work. Period. That's it. That's what you got. But then you're across the desk from Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. So my job, all I had to do, Allison, was just, not corpse, not, kind of, wah, crack up, to just
Not
keep a
lose it.
poker face. My job is now to be Easter Island or a Statue of Lincoln or whatever I can conjure up in my subtext. That's my inner monologue, is to just not blow sky high working with the two of them. Hopefully I rose to the occasion.
You did. Yeah, no, the keeping the straight face would, of course, be one of the hardest parts. I'm reading about all your theater work, your live stuff, that you've written and directed a musical called Caesar and Reuben. I don't know about this.
I had the good fortune to know an incredible man, a great labor leader, great activist in so many ways, Cesar Chavez. He was the head of the United Farm Workers. He started with the great Dolores Huerta, and she's a friend of mine as well. And what they did there for the people who keep us fed every day, the farmers are wonderful that own the land, of course, but the people who pick the food, pick the grapes and pick the lettuce and harvest the fruit from the trees are equally as important as the farmers who own the land. So we have to have reverence for all of them and make sure that those workers are treated fairly. So I worked with them for years on different issues affecting the farm workers. One of the main ones was, since I'm an environmentalist, we worked on pesticide issues together. A
God,
lot of that stuff is highly toxic, and people are working around it, every day, and carrying that, dust home on their clothing when they come home, some of those pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, and it's not healthy for the kids in their home. So we worked on those things together. And after he passed away, I just started thinking about him when I drive up Highway 99, going up north. And I think, oh, that'd be a great song, that song that's playing on the radio right now. If anybody ever does a movie or a TV show or something, a play about Cesar Chavez, there's another great song, I think the next day or the next week night, suddenly, without wanting to do it, had written the first act of a play about Cesar Chavez by writing what they call now, there's a term for it, a jukebox show. You take existing songs like Mamma Mia
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like
yeah.
Jersey Boys. These are songs written long ago, and reverse engineering. You then take, these songs of ABBA and turn it into Mamma Mia. So I did my version of that back in the 90s. I started writing it, and we mounted a production at the El Portal Theater in 2003. It won several Valley Theater League awards and a Nosotros Award. It was a wonderful play. Then we did it again at the NoHo Art Center in the Valley. We did it in Austin, Texas, and we did it in Sacramento. We did it a few times, and it's a lovely play about Cesar Chavez and the wonderful writer for the LA Times, Ruben Salazar, who died in this tragic accident at a anti-war rally in 1970. So I wrote some stuff. They really had met, and he had really interviewed Cesar Chavez, and I have them talking about different things in Cesar's life. They speak in the afterlife, so it's a kind of a funny play and a very touching play, I hope, and it's a musical taking existing songs and telling the story of Cesar Chavez and the story of Ruben Salazar using music, using wonderful songs in Spanish.
See, this is the kind of thing that's like this. Did I know this? I did not know this. See, people didn't know that. And again, we're trying back again to the environmentalism. So you do absolutely everything. The question that always comes up is people say, well, I can't do all that. I try. And as I sit here, yes, I have a blue bin, and more goes into recycling than into the not recycling bin at our house. And we
Right.
try, but it's extremely difficult. For instance, I visit friends in other parts of the country and even my in-laws, and like, there is no recycling in their city or town. There is no blue bin. There is no recycling bin. There is no recycling program. There maybe is something where if they pack up all their bottles and drive 2 hours, there's a place where they can turn them in. But sometimes there's barely even that. There's It's extremely difficult for many people to do something. Not everyone can do all of these things, but I don't think that one should throw up their hands and then just say, okay, well, I can't do everything. I can't ride a bicycle to work, and I can't do this and this and this, so I give up. What can we do? And what can our friends do where there just is no recycling program and they're told, no, you can't do this, just throw all your garbage in the thing? What can people, the average person, do to try to decrease the insane amount of plastic that, as we know, is just, it's now what people are finding it in mother's milk, they're finding it in the fish and in the animals, it's everywhere. And all of these pollutants and all this, well, we're just burying ourselves in our own garbage. We have too much stuff. What can the average person do to start to lessen this?
I think for years people were overwhelmed with the scope of the problems. Now people are overwhelmed with the scope of the solutions. There's
Yep.
so many things that you can do. Well, what do I do? I want to recycle. I want to this and that. Recycling is a gateway drug to further environmentalism. I've always contended. You get people
Good one.
you get people recycling, then they think about what they're really buying. And the best thing to do, certainly with single-use plastics, is wherever you can, and it's certainly possible to do this in many cases, is to not buy it. You got with the problem with plastics everywhere in the ocean and on land and in our systems, in our mother's milk and everything. That problem is so great. That's like, let's use the analogy. It's like a bathtub that's overflowing. You want to get mops, you want to clean things up, and everybody wants to recycle, and that's good. But first of all, turn off the tap. That's the first thing. You got a bathtub that's overflowing. Turn off the tap and stop buying single-use plastic. I think this is a perfectly good use of plastic right here. These things, eyeglasses, they last for many, many years. That's made out of plastic. I think that's a very worthy use of plastic. This computer right here that you can't see, but trust me, it's right here. There's a lot of plastic in that. I think that's a pretty good use of plastic and metal and many other elements. So that's fine. But single-use plastic, why do I need to have a juice or a cup of coffee or anything like that, anything plastic? I use a spoon that's plastic. I bring my reusable utensils with me. I have a little clip that clips on your belt, what have you, if you want. I keep it in my little set bag that I bring to the set. I've got a knife, a fork, a spoon, chopsticks, and a straw, a reusable straw. You got a little brush, you could clean it out too. Very good. And reusable, plates and things that I have in my car as well. Stainless steel bottle that I use instead of using bottled water. And the thing you got to remember about recycling, it's a worthy effort. I've been doing it since 1970, and I'm glad I recycled all that I did. But it really, not a lot of it gets recycled. Only like 7 or 9%. A lot of this stuff it blows
That's
out of
what's
the
driving me
recycling bin.
crazy. I've even
Yeah,
gone on the site and it's like, oh, by the way, these following things aren't rather than throwing them in the recycling bin. Oh, well, this is sometimes recyclable. This is recyclable in certain areas. This is not recyclable. And I'm like, well, hey, what am I supposed to do?
like straws, for instance. You could, where would you put a recycling symbol on a straw to know what kind of resin it is? There's like 6 or 7 different kinds of resin. Number one, number two, number three, number four. All those different kinds of plastics called resins. That's what they're made out of. How would you know what to do? You can't do anything with it. So reusable straws work, and now they have paper straws have made a comeback. In many
Paper
places.
straw. Why did they take away the paper straw? Paper straws are
I
back. They're
know.
fine.
So get away from that plastic as best you can. And then there's other things that you can do. Try not to focus on the list of things you can't do. People get hung up on that as human nature. Well, I can't do X, Y, and Z. What about A through X? A through W, I should say. Try doing some of that stuff. Can you ride a bike if weather and fitness permit? Can you take public transportation if it's available near you? Can you plant a vegetable garden in your front or backyard? Do you have room for a composting bin? Can you become a vegetarian or even just eat, have like meatless Monday or something? Can you use baking soda instead of, harsh Comet? Can you use vinegar and water instead of Windex? Do those things and you're going to save money at every turn. All of them that I just mentioned are super cheap. Get an energy saving thermostat, some energy efficient light bulbs, and all that stuff is not only cheap, but it's going to protect the environment as well.
If, for instance, like I don't have an electric car yet, but I have a car that gets extremely good mileage, that does not use a lot of gas, I bundle my trips. Say, I don't just say, well, I'm going to take the car and run out and do this. I'll wait till tomorrow when I'm doing 2 other things. So it's one trip and I'm driving less
Right.
miles. Is that something at least?
That's definitely something. You do what you can, and then you continue to build because the problems are great. We're not going to solve all these problems by recycling and compact, fluorescent bulbs or now the LED bulbs. We're not going to save it with light bulbs or recycling. We need to do more because climate change is real. So people do. I've done a lot at this home because I have the appetite for it. I have the resources to do it, to build a LEED Platinum home. Not everybody can do that. I couldn't do it. People say, I can't afford this X, Y, and Z, a fancy electric car like you got, or solar electric panels like you got. I go, neither could I. I only got some of this stuff quite recently. Some of the more expensive, like building a LEED Platinum home. That just happened a few years ago for me. But I started small. I did all the stuff that I could, and all of it, if you start and do it in the right order, the cheap and easy stuff first, the thermostats and the light bulbs, the insulation, the diet, all that stuff, you're going to save money. Put that in a bank, put it in a drawer somewhere, and then go out, move up the ladder and buy more green technologies, kind of middle price stuff. And pretty soon you'll be able to afford that solar because nowadays you don't even have to buy solar. You can lease it. You get the same
That's
amount of, same amount of solar I have in my roof, and you don't spend $20,000-$30,000 on it. You pay them $70 a month for the solar lease, but you save $90 a month on your electric bill. So you're putting $20 in your pocket. You didn't have to put any money out. So there's lots of things that you can do. Make a list of the things you can't do, and everything I just mentioned on that list is cheap and relatively easy.
Now, your house, however, is an absolute showpiece of environmental consciousness and recycling and non-polluting. What are
Thank
some
you.
of the things you've got going on at your place?
I've got stuff I only dreamt of for years. I got to be clear. I was in a wonderful house for 26 years, a 1936 house, very much
Mm.
like the house I was raised in Van Nuys, 2-bedroom home, 1,700 square feet. That's really the same size as my childhood home. And I loved it. It was perfect for me. But then I met a lovely lady called Rochelle Carson. She and I started dating, and pretty soon we got married and had a child. And it all started, Allison, with Rochelle wanting more closet space. And that's how it started. It became mission creep, because I said, okay, we can build a bigger closet. And we're doing this and that. This was pretty soon the home was too big on the lot that we lived in a mile west of here. So she said, we got to move to another house. I said, I'm never, ever going to move. Please don't even bring that up. She finally wore me down. I said, okay, here's the deal. If you can find a house that has a south facing roof or a flat roof for my solar, that has a larger space so I can grow more vegetables and put a big rainwater tank, a 10,000 gallon tank on the ground, and you can find it for this price. And I put a number down a piece of paper. I'll move. She'll never
Well,
find it. I knew what I'd written down. She's never going to find that. She found just such a house within a week. So I had to be true to my word and move. And we had intended to do a remodel on the house that was here, but we knew there's a big, beautiful oak tree to the south of us right there. You can't harm an oak tree, nor would I want to. It's against the law and a good law. But we had to get the house up to a second story, as it turned out, to get it out of the shade, the solar out of the shade of that big, beautiful oak tree. We hadn't thought that through. And the old foundation, the old walls wouldn't support the bones of the house, wouldn't support the second story. So we had to go to a vacant lot, but we recycled and reclaimed 97% of that old home. They took all the lumber and pulled the nails out, took all the bricks out, drywall, everything. They took the drywall and got the gypsum out of that. They recycled all the appliances and the doors and the windows. 90 some odd percent of the house was reused. So they didn't just put it in a landfill. The old house, they built a new platinum LEED home on site. And I was ultimately glad that we went for the ground up, because then we could have 12-inch thick walls. We could have solar passive design to have all the glass in the house, not all the glass, but most of the glass on facing south, where the sun could come in wintertime and heat the rooms, and not come in the summertime when it's straight up. Come in the wintertime is what I hope I just said, and not come in the summertime. So that's what you can do. And I did many things beyond that. I have 2 4x10 solar hot water panels. The old home, I only had 1. I have 9 kilowatts installed in the old house. I had 6. I have 4 zones of heating and air, highly efficient, much more efficient than the heating and air unit I had in the previous home. I have 10,000 gallons of rainwater buried underground. I have a gray water system where the water from the tub and the shower and the laundry room goes out to water this fruit orchard in the backyard. 6 raised beds, beautiful vegetables growing year round. On and on. I've got some things that I had never heard of, by the way. Here's a couple I'm going to tell you about that I had never heard of, so I know it'll be new to your listeners. There's a problem with turning on a tap in most homes when you want hot water, is you got to wait. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It was my problem in the old house. It was 20 Mississippi till you finally got hot water to the kitchen area where you wanted to do your dishes. So all that water is wasted. There's some solutions, if you can call them that, where you put a bucket there in the shower, a bucket in the sink, then you got to schlep that out in the garage. Remember to do it and use that to water some stuff.
Doing here, yeah.
Yeah, we've all done that. So what if you could have a way that you could circulate that water in a loop, going to the hot water taps throughout the house, circulate that water? That's been around for years. It's called a circulating pump. And you 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, you'll have hot water your tap in the house because of a circulating pump. But now there's a problem with the circulating pump. There's 2 things that happen. 1, it's a pump. It uses electricity and it's running all the time. So it's using that power. That's a minus right there. Number 2, if it's running all the time, taking hot water and getting it to that tap in the kitchen around, it's kind of running very slowly, fairly low wattage, but it's still running. You're in essence cooling that water, running it throughout the house. So you got to reheat it again all the time. So your water heater is working harder, using more fuel, more natural gas or electricity. So that's the bad thing with circulating pumps. To do a good thing and save water, and that's a good thing, you're doing 2, let's not call them bad things, less than perfect things. But what if, now the story finally begins, Allison. What if you had something called Act on Demand? What Act on Demand is, in every bathroom and kitchen, there's a little sensor up in the ceiling. So when a person comes into a room, a bathroom or a kitchen, when he's probably going to wash his hands, he's probably going to want hot water for something. This person that just came in, it then and only then turns on the circulating pump where the hot water goes, and it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, you got hot water. And you didn't waste it when you're asleep or you're away from the house. There's no circulating pump running, of course, because you're not in any of those rooms. So you save a tremendous amount. You get all the benefit with none of the cost. Called Act on Demand. I have no interest in the company. They don't pay me a fee, but I share this with your viewers. It's a very good thing. One more thing I'll tell you about, I can promise you none of your viewers and listeners have heard about. It's called Hot Sun. H2O Sun is the way the logo is. Like Hot Sun. It's a lovely little company, Hot Sun. And what that is my wife wanted a warmer pool. We have a swimming pool out back. We're lucky enough to have a pool. And I didn't want a pool because the environmental cost of that, water and what have you, wasting water, and it evaporates and you have to use more water to fill it up. Well, I said, if you can, there was a weird shaped geometric design pool on the property when we moved in. I said, if you'll allow me to turn that into a rectangle, honey, and make it so we can then have a pool cover that will, automatically open and close. And also, it'll heat the water a bit with that pool cover. It won't lose the heat at night. I said, then you can have a pool. But it still wasn't warm enough for my wonderful wife, Rochelle. She said, it's still too cold for me to go in. I said, okay, let me put up some more panels in the backyard to heat them. No, I don't want to look at those panels. By the way, you can't see one single panel from anywhere in my property. That's what the architect wanted. That's what my wife wanted. Everybody
So,
wanted that.
so
I
you're
like
really
looking at them.
picky. You want the solar power, but you don't even want to have the panel be like ugly in your yard.
She don't want to. They don't want to see it. Okay, I like the look of them. For me, it's like the look of victory. I see
Right.
panels on my roof. I feel victorious. I like the look of them. I find it great. But whatever, they don't want to see them. So she wouldn't allow me to put solar hot water panels like an arbor or something, a kind of a shaded area in the backyard with more solar, so she could have a warmer pool. And her Hot Sun, the company Hot Sun. Again, I have no financial interest with them, but I'll share with you about it. They take black tubing. It's called solar roll also. They put black tubing on the back, the flip side of your solar PV, your electric panels. So on the back side, you're not blocking any photons from hitting the panels, right? It's on the back. The panels hit the front, the top of the panels, right here in your roof, facing south, that way south. So the photons hit there, but underneath, if you touch a solar panel, maybe you have some point in your life, you touch a solar panel. Oh, damn, you burn your finger. It's so hot. They're almost black. They're so dark, dark blue. It's solar panel. Oh, it's hot. It's the same hot on the back of the panel nearly as it is on the front. The black tubing is placed on the back of the panel. The cool water is circulated with a low wattage pump through that. You get hot water, 91 degrees now. That's even hot enough for Rochelle.
Like
91
chicken
all
soup.
from the sun. How's that?
That's like soup. You'd be swimming in soup.
Yeah, nobody knows about those two things. So I'm telling the world, hot sun and act on demand.
This is great. Now then you've got your stuff, which I just bought some today. You've got your Begley's Earth Responsible products, and I just bought because I love stuff where I know how to iron. I have a really good ironing board and iron, and I actually iron very well. I just don't like it. So the thing you can spray on clothes and wrinkle release, so there's less of that. I just bought a bottle of that. You have a whole bunch of products, and that's it. What it's Begley's Best.
That was the company I had before Begley's Best. I teamed with a great company called Lab Clean. So now it's Begley's Earth Responsible Products. They're
Begley's Earth
wonderful
Responsible product.
non-toxic products. We have pet shampoo and what have you. We got an odor and stain remover. We got a bunch of different products that are all wonderful, wonderful products. They're selling in Costco now in Texas. We hope to be in Costco's throughout the country soon, but it's doing very well. It sells on Amazon. If you just look on Amazon, go Begley Cleaning, you'll find it, or just do a Google search, Begley Cleaning, outside of Amazon if you wish, and you can find it there as well. But it's wonderful, wonderful cleaners. And there's many other great cleaners out there, that are non-toxic. Seventh Generation has great cleaners. ECOS has great cleaners. I always say that because we're in this together. I want people to just try a non-toxic cleaner and see how they
Simple
work.
Green good because I've been using Simple Green. That is
Their ones, Ecos is better. Seventh
okay.
Generation is better than that. My products,
Okay.
in my opinion, are better than that. And I'd love for you to try mine. Please try
I
my
will try,
products. They're very
absolutely.
good. But I want somebody to buy some green product and please try it because I'm out there with people protesting the hazardous waste site with signs, no hazardous waste near our homes. There's hazardous waste inside of our homes, under all of our sinks. That's the hazardous waste. It's this horrible chemical soup that we all buy willingly, purchase with our hard-earned money, and put under our sinks and use around our kids and our pets. Kids are crawling on the floor, putting their fingers in their mouth. What are they crawling on? Not just the floor. Use toxic chemicals to clean that floor. Your pets are constantly patting around on the linoleum or the wood or whatever it is, and they're putting their paws in their mouth. With what? With toxic chemicals. Stay away from that stuff. Get rid of it. Get good, seventh generation products, Ecos or my products. Please give them a try. They're really wonderful products at Amazon and at Costco now in Texas.
So these are the small things you can do. So even at the very least, the air in your house and the surfaces in your house will not be toxic, and your pollution levels will lower.
Exactly. That's the thing about all this stuff, you know. You have these wonderful energy efficient homes now, and mine is very energy efficient. It's well sealed up with double pane windows and 12-inch thick walls. Now you definitely have to have a non-toxic home because the air isn't blowing through it like a house. My old house was like a sieve until I sealed it up. Water, wind was just blowing through. And so now when you have a house that's that well insulated, that's a good thing. You got to make sure that you don't use any formaldehydes, any toxic glues, any toxic carpeting, toxic chemicals in your bathroom, in your kitchen. Get rid of all that stuff. You're going to be healthy. You're going to sleep better. You're going to feel better. And that's what we have to do. We have such a toxic soup that we live with nowadays. Sleep in a polyurethane mattress. When you're out, you have you pump gasoline with benzene in it and all the toxic stuff that's in gasoline. You're around toxic chemicals when you're cleaning up your house. Stop doing all that stuff. Try to lead a non-toxic life and start with the stuff that's very energy efficient and cost effective. Start with vinegar and water, start with baking soda. And if you need more aggressive cleaners, we got them at Begley's and some of the other companies do.
Well, now, is there hope for us? The one thing that I come back to is and I try is when I look at the situation with what is happening with global warming, what is happening with worldwide pollution, the literally barges full of garbage stuck out there, and that we've just like exceeded our limit of stuff, and the pollution levels, and the fact, as I said, the plastic is in the fish and in our bodies, etc. Yet we have seen progress, as we talked about with the smog, that the smog was far worse when I was a child than it is now. So obviously you can reverse some things. There are some scientists who've said it's too late for us. We've screwed the pooch, that we've gone so far that we're not going to be able to undo the level of pollution and toxicity worldwide that we have created. And then there's others who say, yes, we have so many years to sort of rein this in. Is there hope for us? Is it possible that we reverse the smog in LA? I saw it myself. Is it possible? Have we gone too far? Do we stand a chance of reversing global warming, worldwide pollution, and the plastic that is literally coming out my pores? Probably.
There are problems that are in play right now that are in motion already that we won't be able to change. What's happening to coral reefs, the loss of our fishes, the way we've overfished, climate change, amount of CO2, and what kind of wetter wets and drier dries, and just more problems with weather, more extreme storms, more flooding, all of that. It's going to be very bad for the people in Bangladesh and other low-lying areas as the sea level rises. These are all real problems, and we can't fix all of those problems at all. In fact, very precious few of them can we fix, but there's a lot that we can fix. There's forests we can still save. There's species we can still save. So don't get hung up on what's already in the pipeline you can't fix. Concentrate on what you can. There's a lot left that we can do, a lot of damage we can prevent. But if we have to act now. We have to do something that's going to make a change, or we will, people are derisive of the different, creatures like the spotted owl. People say, I don't want to give up jobs to protect the spotted owl. The spotted owl is part of a web of life that we need to support us. How many rivets can you lose from an airplane, Allison, before it ceases to fly? You tell me, 5, 7, 23? There's a point where you start popping rivets out of an airplane, it will come down and will crash. The flops of metal will come apart and it will crash and you'll all perish. We're at that point now, and Paul Ehrlich made that wonderful comparison about rivets from the airplane. I got to give him credit. But that's where we're at now. We've lost enough rivets from the airplane. We can't lose anymore. We need the spotted owl. We need all the many species that are part of the web of life that we thought we were separate. Man was separate. Man was apart. Man would just conquer everything that he could, and with technology, we'd solve everything. But you can't solve everything with technology. You have to live sustainably, and you need the other species to survive. We need it for clean water and for clean air. We need the forest for those obvious reasons. What forests do for us, what urban trees do for us, the way it retains moisture, prevents soil erosion, puts out oxygen, brings in CO2. Everything a tree does is wonderful. Keeps your homes and offices cooler. Everything that we do with trees is important. It's a simple thing, and we lose so many trees every year. And as it gets warmer, the bark beetle and other pests come in and claim more trees. So we just got to do what we can. Don't get hung up on what has been lost. Just have it be a wake-up call so we know we have to do something. We're going to lose even more. Let's keep what we've got, what still can be fixed.
And I've seen the improvements. My husband is from Ohio. Yes, he saw the river on fire. Quite familiar with that. But that's the thing. When we went back to Ohio after I hadn't been there in ages, and I said, "Oh, it's so green. It's so lovely here." He said, "I swear to you, none of these trees were green when I left." And he had been there when he said it was all the the tire factories, etc., and that just soot everywhere and just blackness. And well, they closed them, and there were massive changes in how people did things. And now Akron is all about the universities, like their biggest industry there. And you come in now, and the grass is green, the trees are green, and the river's definitely not on fire anymore. And so I've seen places change. And as I said, LA, the air quality is better in LA. So clearly, one can reverse some damage.
We've done it globally too with CFCs. We finally learned in the late 70s, late early 80s, 1987, we learned clearly that year about what CFCs were doing to the ozone layer. They were eating a hole, the ozone hole was getting big and bigger, and we need that UVB protection for the ozone layer. It's a very bad thing as it started to get larger, that ozone hole. We stopped with CFCs. They told us, they scared us. They said, you'll never be able to buy an air conditioner if you do that. Never be able to buy a refrigerator again. I'm told they still sell both things. I've heard that they're still selling occasionally.
Got one of each. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So they got rid of CFCs, global thing, and that hole is not the same size. It's not bigger, it's smaller. So we did that.
I heard the hole in the ozone layer did in fact get smaller. So this is true. Our hole in the ozone layer is getting smaller, which was considered completely impossible a few years ago.
Impossible to do. Wouldn't do that for 50 years or what have you. In about a decade or so, because we got serious about it, people run big companies like Northern Telecom. They said, some guy, I can't remember his name, was the CEO of the company, said, everybody from the janitor up to me has got to work to find a solution to this. We can't be part of the problem here because they're using it to clean their circuit boards. They found another way to do it, clean their circuit boards without CFCs. They saved $250,000 that year. It was a financial incentive because CFCs were expensive. So you do the right thing, there can be a payoff in so many ways. Do the right thing, lead a less toxic life, protect the many species that we need that are part of the web of life, lessen our dependence on foreign oil, put money in our pockets, and clean up the air in our cities. We can do all those things.
All right. Well, thank you. Tell everyone where they can find you, because they're going to want to find you, and you are everywhere. So tell everyone the websites and what have you, and Instagram and whatnot.
Just do a Google search, Ed Begley, you get all my sites, but it's Ed Begley Jr. for Ed Begley Jr. at Twitter. That's Ed Begley Jr. as in Junior. And I'm not really faster with Instagram yet. I'm going to get better with that. So you'll see my Instagram presence soon. But just type in Ed Begley. EdBegley.com will get you to me. Any of that will get to me.
And you have tons of stuff going on. You have all these. You also had an Echo reality show, Living with Ed, on Begley Street.
Yes, on Begley Street was one show. Living with Ed was one show. Had some great shows that we did to try to get people motivated to try some of the things we had tried. It was quite successful in that we reached a lot of people. A lot of people bought a solar oven or tried, energy efficient, light bulbs. Or we affected a lot of people. So I'm very proud of the show for that reason. I was also in a wonderful movie that just came out called Amsterdam. Also, I was on Better Call Saul the last season.
Yes.
For 5 seasons.
So good.
So I'm very lucky to be on those wonderful shows, and very lucky to be here today with you, Allison.
Thank you so much for coming, and we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying because the hole in the ozone layer did get smaller. All right, thank you so much, and I hope to have you again sometime. Thank you for coming, and thank all of you for watching. And yes, this is the Allison Arngrim Show, and I'm Allison Arngrim.
I found my way home, across the ground.